Okay. So today we're working on developing a thesis. And it is super important lesson. And what I really like about it, it's really well put together. It's going to take us step by step on how to do that. We're going to have templates we're working with. So a lot of good material in here to help us with our writing. So like it says here, by the time you complete this lesson, you'll be able to define the term thesis, which we already know quite a bit about, and then develop your own thesis to reply to an extended response. Or the extended response question. So that's setting us up for our writing here. And just in general, this is really going to help reinforce a lot of what we've already looked at. So let's listen to our audio.
A thesis is a key statement or claim that answers the question posed by the extended response prompt. The extended response itself is an argument in which you work to prove your thesis and persuade your audience that your reading and evaluation of the source texts are accurate, complete, and worthy of consideration. To begin an extended response, read the prompt and identify the task. During a test, it is best to read the prompt both before and after you read the passages. This practice will help you establish a purpose for reading. It can also provide guidance for taking notes or marking the passages as you read. After you have finished reading, develop your thesis.
So we've looked at a thesis before, and we got a pretty good understanding of that, right? It is the that main claim. It is the key statement. It is the main argument of whatever you're reading. As a grad student, we would do these seminars and colloquiums where 5 or 6 of us, whoever was taking the class, we would get assigned for the semester, like maybe a book a week, or maybe 2 short books and an article or something like that. But whatever it was, we would meet once a week and sit down with our professor, and we would discuss, whatever book or articles or whatever they were. And every time, without fail, the professor would ask us, what is the thesis? That was so central to understanding everything else that we read. And, as I mentioned, I study military U.S. military history. There's books that I can't remember the author, I can't remember the title, and somebody will mention a book, and I'll just be like, well, "What was the thesis?" And they'll say, "Oh, what was yada yada yada." I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I remember it." And it all boils down to that 1 or 2 sentence statement that a author makes. And like in my field, if I mentioned to somebody the American Way of War thesis, everybody in my field should or most likely will know that I'm talking about a specific book and a specific author, and they know that thesis, and they know the evidence that's in there and the claims that are made. So it's really the backbone of writing in this style, right? As far as nonfiction writing, the things that we're looking at is the backbone of everything else we do. Whether it's a 500-page book, an article, or 3 or 4 paragraphs, it's all the same. Okay, so let's say here, it says by practicing the skill of developing a claim or thesis, you will improve your study, writing, and test-taking abilities, especially as they relate to the GED reasoning through language arts test. Read the information and study the table below, then answer the questions that follow. So we're going to have a little more audio here to kind of explain how the questions are going to work today. It's a little bit different. It's going to be a little more writing, not very many multiple choice, but we're going to all work through it together. And the other thing I want to mention, I'm going to go back to this, right? Read the question first. Read the prompt first when you get to your test, so you know what is being asked, so you know what to look for as you read the passages. You're going to have 2 passages to read on that test, and you want to know exactly what you need to answer. So always read the prompt first. Okay, and then you can go back and review it afterward. So let's take a look at our next audio.
When you respond to the extended response prompt on the Reasoning Through Language Arts GED test, you will need to analyze texts and write an essay that identifies which text is better supported using specific textual evidence. The items in the following quiz walk you through the process of developing a thesis statement for an extended response. In this item, you are asked to identify the second reason presented in Cliff's article. You will type the second reason in the space provided. You will notice that the first reason has been provided for us. It was given in the second paragraph of the article. In order to identify reason 2, we will need to refer to the third paragraph of Cliff's article. In this paragraph, the author states that the quality of education is compromised. Now that we've identified the second reason the author is against online education, we can type quality of materials in the box.
Okay. If the audio is a little weird there, don't worry about it because we're going to work our way through this. But that was just giving us a little brief introduction to how we're going to go about it. So let's take a look then at the quiz. We'll get a little better idea here. So let's start our quiz. Okay, now we're going to be looking at so for the quiz, we have some writing that we've seen before. It's going to be the same for the workbook, but we'll go ahead and read through them again just to get a refresher here and understand. So I'll read through them, and what I want you to do is to follow along. I want you to think about their thesis. I want you to think about the claims they make to support that thesis and the evidence they use to support the claims, right? It's sort of tiered, right? Main argument, claims, and then the evidence to support it. All right, so what it has up the top here says, while Elaine Cliff's article outlines the drawbacks of online education, Carl Jones's article identifies the benefits of online education. So you might remember this from a day or two ago. In your extended response, analyze both articles to determine which position is better supported. Use relevant and specific evidence from both sources to support your response. This is what your writing prompt is going to look like, right? It's going to tell you analyze both articles, determine which position is better supported, use relevant and specific evidence from both sources to support your response. Very straightforward. And I'll mention this too. There's no right or wrong, right? You pick the one that you believe is best supported. Others may pick another one, and we're going to kind of work through that. We'll choose some different things through our exercises here to see how that works. But it's up to you to decide which one has the better case made, has the better evidence, has the better argument. So let me go ahead and read through here. Keep in mind, we're looking for that main thesis statement, we're looking for those claims, and then we're looking for that evidence. So for I'll never teach online again. So I'll just chalk up my first and only venture to experience and make my way back to the traditional classroom. Among the reasons why are these. A virtual community is the ultimate contradiction in terms, like saying one is fresh from the tennis court, while some people find anonymity enabling and are able to bond with their online group and engage in true confessions. I find it very difficult to communicate with people for whom I have no face, no body language, no in-the-moment exchange. The quality of education is compromised in online learning. In online teaching, I was only able to introduce students to limited amount of material outside of the textbook readings. It is simply impossible to replicate a lecture online, nor could I adequately help them develop better writing and critical thinking skills or to foster original ideas because there simply wasn't enough time or a proper way to discuss ideas. Show me the money. I devoted at least 3 times as many hours and triple the energy to online teaching than was necessary for traditional courses, but I received no additional pay for that effort. Try to talk me down. Tell me I didn't give it enough time, Call me old-fashioned and out of date. Just don't call me to teach online. And that was from universityworldnews.com article, I'll Never Teach Online Again by Elaine Clift, Access 2013. So that should feel pretty familiar. Our second one, the benefits of online education. One of the biggest appeals of online education is a flexibility that the standard classroom cannot match. Although there are still deadlines, students may complete assignments at preferred times. A student who works during the evening may complete assignments during the day. Another student may complete the same assignments during the evening. In addition, because students access virtual classrooms electronically, they may attend classes in other states or countries without leaving home and driving to a specific location. Online programs also may offer more course choices than a traditional campus. Another appeal of online education is self-management. Students can choose their own certificate or degree programs, plan the pace at which they want to complete these programs, and access course materials at any time. Rebecca, an online student, recalls, "When I missed a class, I missed the notes. Now I'm able to access the professor's course notes whenever I need them." Lastly, online education offers exciting options for students with different learning styles. In place of the traditional classroom lecture, many courses feature multimedia elements. These may range from video and audio clips to live chats and discussion forums. Today, statistics show that about 32% of college students take at least one online class. It's clear that technology is revolutionizing education and provide new and exciting opportunities for students such as Jalen Rollins, okay? And so we're going to encounter this a few times here when we get to the workbook, especially, and I want to try to save this image and put it in Google Classroom because it really provides the framework of how you'll set up your thesis statement when you're talking about these. So it says, when drafting a thesis, set up a series of argumentative phrases. Just put this in your mind. So while blank argues that blank, blank makes a better argument in favor of against blank because blank, right? So that's how you set it up. You would insert Clift here. So while Clift argues that online education is a waste of time or online education is not worth it, Jones makes a better argument in favor of online education because of the flexibility in learning, right? There you go. That's what you would do. And that's really half the battle. Then the rest of your writing response is going to be fleshing out that idea. So we have one multiple choice here to start with. How about we go to Christiana? We want to take care of number one here.
Okay, number one. Okay. Which claim is the best? Please, the word is what? Is it tactics? Which claim is the best? Is it tactics?
Thesis.
The word. Okay. Statement for the prompt above. A. Jones is a supporter of online business. B. Jones would make a better online teacher than Clift. C. Clift make a strong argument than Jones. And D. Clift is not a supporter of online education. Is it D?
So it's C. Makes a stronger argument than Jones, and the other ones aren't so much, a thesis. They're kind of assertions or claims. So Jones is a supporter of online education. That's an inference, right? But there we don't even have the other side, or there's no reference to both of the claims here of both passages. The second one, Jones would make a better online teacher than Clift. that's outside the realm of what we're discussing, right? We're discussing the benefits or drawbacks of online education. And then D, Clift is not a supporter of online education. Well, yeah, we see that in the article. That's well stated. Once again, though, that is not addressing both prompts, and that is more of an inference made by what she's written. C, though, we get, a claim being made that Clift makes a stronger argument than Jones. And that's how you go about then for the rest of your writing, you would explain why you believe that. So C for number 1. And then what we're going to get into here is just a little bit of writing. So what it's asking here, identify the second and third reasons presented in Clift's article, I'll never teach again, or I'll never teach online again. The first reason has been provided for you. Type your answer in the space provided. You may refer to Clift and Jones articles in item 1, right? So we can keep going back and looking. So Clift's position, right? This is the overall thesis. Online courses are troublesome and not worth the effort, right? That is her thesis statement. That's her argument. Reason 1, right? She says the anonymity, right? She makes the point that it's faceless, that she can't connect with students. So let's go ahead and just put it and do that. Now for 2, what is the next claim she makes? What is the next reason? Right? Looking at our paragraphs here.
Limited amount of materials
Yes.
outside the test.
Yeah, you got so right there in the third, at the beginning. It says the quality of education is online learning, right? So it says I was only able to introduce students to a limited amount of material outside of the textbook readings. So we can boil that down, right? We don't have to like write the whole thing. We want to get the main point, kind of building an outline, right? So what we can put there is the quality of education is compromised. So put the quality of education is compromised. Make sure I'm spelling this right. And we'll put another sentence there addressing sort of that second part. So, wrong one. Quality of education is compromised, only able to introduce students to a limited amount of materials. So, of education is compromised, only able to introduce a limited amount of material. Oh, geez, I am struggling with typing today. Okay, so that is right, our second reason. And then right under that, she goes into her, I will copy and paste that. She goes into her her evidence, right? Then she gets into some supporting evidence. Oh, if I can get the T there too. Okay, here we go. Copy. And we'll drop that into the chat. All right, there we go. Okay, I'll do that along the way. So next, we have one more we need to address, right? She has basically 3 main claims, 3 supporting claims for her main idea, her main thesis. What then is the next one? Let's look at paragraph 4. What is the next reason?
It doesn't pay much.
So yeah, you're on the right track. It's how can we put this? the time, it's, we'll say it like this, like what she says here, it's triple the energy compared to a traditional classroom, right? So she's not making up the difference there as far as pay and everything. So it is triple the work compared to a traditional classroom. Okay, right, so that's her second claim. It's not what I want to do. There we go. And and paste that one in the chat. Right, so she talks about that, and then she mentions how, right, it's the amount of work she put in, and she's not getting the pay for it. But that is the second clip here. It's the amount of work. Again, you know, when we're building these, this is sort of just like an outline. We just want to make sure that we understand those claims, so we can kind of, you know, shorthand them. We don't have to get into, you know, putting the whole passage in there or anything else, just as long as we understand what the claim is. So 2, right? So the quality of education is compromised, only able to introduce a limited amount of material. That's her second claim, or her second reason. And then it is triple the work compared to a traditional classroom. That's her third reason. Okay. Now, moving on to number 3, identify the second and third pieces of evidence presented in Cliff's article. I'll never teach you online again. The first piece of evidence has been provided for you. Type your answer in the space provided. You may refer back to Cliff and Jones' article for this one. So, right. So the first piece of evidence we got here, right? So the evidence that she provides is acknowledgement of another point of view, personal admission. So she, you know, just for the example there, right? So talking about, she makes the case that people claim that this virtual community, right? It's this great sort of, you know, learning community, you know, whatnot. But in truth, for her, that's, you know, a contradiction, because everybody is anonymous online. There's no community that's really wrapped around this. So what did she use next for evidence? And this is going to go towards her second claim, right? Her second reason.
It adequately helped them to develop better writing and critical thinking skills. Oh.
Yeah, okay, right there. She helped them develop better writing and critical skills. Great job. Now, what type of evidence is that? Because that's important too. It's a personal experience, right? So it's anecdotal. That doesn't necessarily rule it out, but we want to mention that, right? So I'm going to scroll back down here. So for 2, we're going to say anecdotal, cool, right? Anecdotal, based on personal experience. And then he was kind of put a little brief in here about could help them develop better writing and critical thinking skills. Well, I'm going to go too far. So could not help students develop better writing or making arguments. Okay, fix that one. Oh, hey, there we go. And paste that in the chat. There you go. There's that one. Right. So that's something you want to make note of. What was the evidence? What type of evidence was it? Because if you decide to say, she had the weaker argument, you would point out that her only evidence was anecdotal, that it was personal experience. Okay, and then last one, or this third one, I guess I should say. Let's go down here, 3. What is her third claim? Her third piece of evidence. We basically, this one's kind of rolled into the claim for the first, or for the first question, right? So it's her claim about how much time she devoted. So we kind of included that. We got real specific, but that's also her third piece of evidence. It's kind of rolled into one there. So her claim being that, so her, another personal experience based on pay versus time spent. We'll copy there and we'll paste here. Everybody's sort of getting the structure here, right? So we looked at the claim, the overall claim first, then we looked at the supporting claims, and then we looked at the evidence. So those are all going to kind of follow, right, sequentially. If you're thinking about making an outline, right, of doing this, so you would have the main thesis, that would be like your number 1 point, and then A would be the first claim, and then your next Roman numeral or whatever, however you set up your outline, would be the evidence. So it will have some more sort of visual guidelines here for that too. So for that, right, anecdote based on personal experience, and then a personal experience based on pay versus time spent. So both were anecdotal. 4, so now identify the second and third reasons. We're switching to Jones's article now. So second and third reasons presented in Jones's article, the benefits of online education. The reason has been provided for you. Type your answer in the space provided. So, right, that's his overall reason, is the flexibility. That was his main argument. So for Jones, or that was reason 1, I'm sorry. So the online courses have many advantages and benefits, right? That's his overall thesis. That's the main point he's making. And then the first reason we get, right, is the flexibility. Now we're going to add to that with 2 more reasons. So for 2, what is the second reason?
Students who works during the evening may complete assignment during the day.
So that is, let's see here. Okay, so yeah, a student complete assignments during the day. Another student may complete the same assignments during the evening. So that goes along with the flexibility. That is his evidence for the flexibility. the next reason.
Okay. Paragraph 3. Is it
No. That's all part of the first one, right?
Oh.
So the flexibility was his first reason. The evidence for flexibility is giving this, idea about, students' time when they spend it. If we drop down to the third paragraph, we see the second reason, right? Self-management. So self-management is going to be the second reason.
No.
So we're going to put in self-management. Okay. Okay. Okay, and then we have one final reason for Jones's passage. So self-management is the second.
It's also a citing option for students with different learning styles.
Different styles, is that what you said? Yes.
Yeah, paragraph 4.
You got it. So yeah, so right, he goes, another appeal was the self-management, and then he provides that. So lastly, right, remember, look for our signal words and our transitions. Lastly, very good. Online education offers exciting options for students with different learning styles. So we can sum that up to learning options, right? Just learning options. Great. Copy. Paste. So learning options for the third reason. Okay.
Okay, so when writing, you don't have to write everything. It should be summarized.
Right. Yeah. What we're doing here is to get you thinking about how you're going to build your own thesis statement, right? So if you're going through when it comes to actually writing, you will be like, you'll just make your assertions this way. So, in Jones's article, one of his reasons is self-management. Discussing self-management, and he, states that blah, blah, blah about the evidence. That's all you do, right? Yeah, you're not going to go back and restate everything. You can quote, if you need to, you'll be able to quote them. You just got to make sure that you're using your quotations. It's like Jones said, quotation mark, blah, 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 end quotation mark, and go on. Yeah, good job. 5. All right, so identify the second, third pieces of evidence, right? So now we're back to evidence with Jones's article. First piece of evidence has been provided for you. So like it says here, description of assignment completion and course choices, going with flexibility, right? Building your own sort of degree, description of assignment completion and course choices. So looking at the next evidence, what evidence does, let me go ahead and put this for 2. What evidence do we see Jones using?
When I miss class, I miss notes. So
they can complete the assignments at any time, either day or evening.
Yeah, paragraph 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the evidence, right, is a student, the student's quote there. So he uses an actual student, an online student, and it's sort of like a testimonial, right? So he's using a testimonial from a student as evidence about, missing class and getting notes. So for that one, we'll say, get all the way back down here, quotation from an online student. right? That is supporting that claim about self-management. Okay. Then one more for basically to go along with learning options. So what evidence does he present there?
Students can take at least one online class.
That's no, that's wrapping up. That's kind of a bandwagon statement, and more about his conclusion. But if we look again at that fourth paragraph, so lastly, online education offers exciting options, right? Which was our third reason. If you look at that second sentence, it says in place of the traditional classroom lecture, many courses feature multimedia elements. So there's your evidence there of when he says, learning options different for different students. And then he supports that with traditional classroom lecture is replaced with many courses featuring multimedia elements. 5. Compares traditional lectures with new online multimedia elements. Okay. Copy there. Paste here. So, you're catching on, it's going to be typically right after, they make the claim that they introduce the evidence. So, look for those types of assertions after they make that initial claim as far as evidence goes. It may be statistical, it may be, anecdotal, it may be a testimony from a student or, whatever it may be, or, it may just be another assertion about, giving you an example. So in this case, it's like an example of how traditional lecture or, how that comparison differs between the or learning options, right? So how learning options work in that environment. Okay, so 6. Answer the following questions based on the articles I'll Never Teach Online Again and the Benefits of Online Education. You may refer back to these articles, okay? So now we're getting to actually evaluating each argument, okay? So looking at Cliff's argument, what do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of hers? Go back and take a look here as well at the article.
Difficult to communicate.
Oh, what was that?
I said difficult to communicate.
Okay, so thinking about her point of view, right? She uses her argument is from a teacher's point of view. So her evidence, though, is based on personal experience and is anecdotal. But style and tone are appealing. So we'll say it like this. So Cliff presents her article, her argument from a teacher's point of view, but she relies on anecdotal evidence So her personal account may appeal to readers. Okay. So, the weakness there, she has a personal experience that may appeal to readers, but she's only relying on anecdotal evidence, right? She doesn't give us any statistics about the difference between online learners, their success rate, grade point average, dropout rate, any of that, anything that would help make her case. She simply relies on anecdotal information, anecdotal evidence. So here we go. All right. Got that copied and pasted. And then we do the same thing for Jones. So thinking, now about Jones's argument, what do you see as his strengths and weaknesses for his passage? What is his viewpoint? What does he work with evidence-wise?
From students?
So he's using a student point of view. What about his evidence?
From himself?
It's still anecdotal. It's not necessarily from himself, but he does use, an anecdote from, like one student. And it is, the viewpoint does come from the students a lot, right? So a student, the flexibility built into students, the appeal as far as like the variety of classes and things like that. So part of his weakness is he only has, much the same way Clift only has is only using her personal point of view, doesn't really address the student. Jones does the exact opposite, right? All of his is from the student's point of view, but he, fails to include, maybe the difficulties of online teaching for, instructors or, other things. He does have a variety of evidence. He uses some statistics. He does, talk about the availability of multimedia and things like that. So what we want to put together then, what we'll say here is Jones presents his argument. Man, I am not typing well today. By focusing on the student experience. But he does offer a variety of evidence. And see, this is where, it comes down to, how do you feel about each one of those passages? This is what I mean. There's, they're not wanting you to, they're not giving you a right and wrong passage. They want you to use some critical thinking and explain on your own what is the weaknesses and what are the strengths. And, ultimately, you are going to be the one that decides what you think the stronger case is. And I mean, if it's okay, if it has if you use some bias, we're online learning. So you may feel that Jones has a stronger case because you have that personal experience. you're not going to really put that in your passage, but that, might be why you choose one over the other. What you are going to address then is like right here, it's like, well, Jones's argument does focus solely on the student experience. He does offer a variety of evidence. Then you would go into, addressing and listing out some of the evidence that he uses. And you would then go on to say, Cliff, however, has a compelling argument based on personal experience, but she only uses her own personal experiences and anecdotal evidence to address the concerns of online teaching with no viewpoint from the students. That's something like that. That's how you would wind that into your writing response. So yeah, so did I copy and paste that yet? I don't think I did. Let's take a look. Right. Okay, here is that one. Yeah, there it is. Jones presents his argument by focusing on the student experience, but he does offer a variety of evidence. Okay. Moving along here. So now we get to decide. This is totally up to us for question 8. Right? Answer the following question based on the 2. You may refer back to these articles. Item 1. Which position, Cliff's or Jones, is better supported? That's all we have to answer. Want to take a vote?
I'm sorry.
Which one do you think's better? This is just your personal, and we're just going to put that in there. We'll all agree. We'll be a democracy today. Which one? Who thinks Cliff's argument is better? Position is better.
Jones?
It's Cliff.
Cliff's is the teacher. So
Yeah.
do you think that's better?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. All right. So we got a vote for Cliff there. We got
Jones.
okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to throw my 2 cents in, and I'm going to say Jones as well. But again, right, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's what you choose to pick and how you want to go about, conveying why you feel that way and the evidence that you use. That's what they're looking for, your critical thinking ability in these. So we're just going to say Jones. And hey, you want to go ahead and put Clift in there? That's you can do that too. That's there you go. Right, there's no right or wrong answer here. We're not getting great on this. I'm going to put Jones is better supported. That's all we have to do there. Okay. Yeah, so Clift or Jones, whatever you choose.
Oh, so in the exams, if someone writes Cliff, and then the other persons also writes Jones, are they all going to get the same mark? The same mark? Sorry. Let's say it's 5 points. When you state either Jones or Clift, it's 5 points. And I state Clift and someone else states Jones. Are we all going to get the same mark? The same mark?
Yeah, it's not going to mark anything wrong. It's not going to mark anything wrong. It's basically what you think. All of this writing is not, we're not getting graded on it the way we do with the multiple choice questions or the fill in the blank. This is more of an exercise for us, just for the learning purpose of it. It's not like just gonna, there's no specific, there you go. It's built on your opinion. There's no specific word combination or anything that's getting checked here. It's just, so if you put Clift in there, or you put Jones in there, that's all good. Now, we'll go ahead, since we both, since we sort of had these 2 ideas. It says answer the following, again. So write a claim or thesis from your extended response, right? So what we're going to do here is basically craft our own argument, write our own thesis, and whichever way you go. Okay, so we'll do 2. I'll put 2 in here so we can see how this goes. So for starters, let's say Jones is our better argument. Okay, so we could say, while Cliff argues that online education is superior to the classroom, Jones makes a stronger argument in favor of online education. Okay, wait a minute. You know what? This should be 1 sentence. I can't believe I'm doing that. Let me see here. So let's put a comma there. Jones makes a stronger argument in favor of online education because he offers a greater variety of evidence. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm going to copy and paste this in. If that's the one you want to use, you can use that. Now you see, right? This would be our argument, right? This is going to be our thesis for when we write. That is what you would do for the rest of your writing, is explain why Jones has better evidence. Okay, and so we'll do the same thing for Cliff. So, we'd say the same thing. Well, Jones argues that online education provides let's see here. Flexibility to online students. Cliff makes a stronger argument based on her personal experience teaching online. Okay. While Jones argues that online education provides flexibility to online students, Cliff makes a stronger argument based on her personal experience teaching online. And we do the same thing, right? We would show maybe where, Jones only uses the student side for his experience and things like that. Okay. So there's that one in the chat now as well. Okay. That's the quiz for today. So everybody caught up here, able to, that stuff's still going to be in the chat, so we can move along here and see. I'll show you what happens when we submit it. Right, we get our check mark. It doesn't grade, right? It does, give us examples of the right answer, right? So there are, more concrete answers for those first parts, right? There's only 2 reasons, there's only 3 reasons, those things like that. So like the first piece of evidence has been provided for you. And then if we look underneath, it'll show you, right? Anecdote based on personal experience, statistic based on personal experience. And then that's what we put in our response. Anecdotal based on personal experience, could not help students develop better writing or critical thinking skills. Personal experience based on pay versus time spent. Okay, so no wrong answers technically today. All right, so we'll move over to the quiz. And we're going to get some more, same type of thing. We're going to get a few more graphics and things to work with in this one. And as it says, so to begin the writing task required by the extended response, you must first read the prompt carefully to determine your purpose and task. You must then read, analyze, and evaluate the source text. Remember to reread the prompt when you have finished. This practice will help you focus your extended response. The next step is to develop the claim or thesis that you will defend in your extended response. This thesis is based on your evaluation of the source text. Often you will be asked to determine whether an author makes an argument that is logical and persuasive. To make this determination, examine the elements of the author's argument. Are the reasons and evidence logical and credible? Is the rhetoric convincing or misleading, right? So those are the things, just like, what we've been building to with, claims, looking at, I posted all of those things about rhetorical devices and evidence on our the Google Classroom for the review yesterday. So go back and take a look at those, things like those claims, right? As far as like using a testimony, is it relevant? The student's relevant, but it's one case. If Miley Cyrus is telling you not to eat gluten, I don't care what Miley Cyrus thinks about gluten. I don't know. Hannah Montana got her PhD in nutrition, right? Bandwagon elements, right? So if they're using bandwagon elements for evidence, 60 or the average teenager sends 60 texts a day. Big deal. What my mom always said about, bandwagon, right? If everyone else jumps off a bridge, are you going to also? That's the idea of bandwagon. So as we're evaluating the the overall claim and then the supporting claims and the evidence, that's where you got to start finding out. It's like, okay, is this legitimate evidence, or is there a weakness there because it's using faulty logic? Okay, and then it says here, so by refining the skill of developing claim or thesis, you will improve your study, writing, and test-taking ability, especially as they relate to the GED, reasoning through language arts test. Read the information below, then answer the questions that follow, okay? So again, looking at this, so we're gonna, two new passages, which we've also read before as well, but we'll review them. So it says, while Clement's article outlines some drawbacks of social media, Young's article identifies some benefits of social media. And then in your response, you analyze both articles to determine which position is better supported. Use relevant and specific evidence from both sources to support your response. So a claim or thesis, right? They have the two, and either A or B better supports her claim because, and that's how you fill it in. What it says here at the bottom, the prompt asks you to determine which argument is better supported. Consider your initial reactions to the articles. With whom do you agree? Does either change your thinking about the subject or make you consider a new point of view? Right? That's the whole thing. If whatever we encounter in life, if somebody presents you with a thesis about something, do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? And why? What is the evidence? What is the claims that they use and the evidence they use to support it? Second, fill in the blank box on the basis of the argumentative elements you identified in workbook lesson 1, such as the point of view, response to counter arguments, rhetorical techniques, key ideas, or transitional language, right? So those are all those lessons that we've built to this so far. All right, so start the workbook. I'll go ahead and read our two passages, and they'll certainly sound familiar for you guys. So the appeal of socializing online has created a nation of mobile device fans, many of whom can go barely 10 minutes without checking their smartphones. Some believe that social media may already be changing how people think and learn. This should sound familiar. When electronic devices were first becoming popular, some hoped that they would teach a new generation how to multitask better than previous generations did. But research shows that people who grew up with electronic devices really can't multitask either, says Larry Rosen, a professor of psychology at California State University. I think it's Dominguez Hills. As a result, the typical technology-obsessed person now gives continuous partial attention to just about everything and full attention to almost nothing. You never do anything in depth, he says. You're constantly interrupted and you're self-interrupting too, he says. The very nature of the brain seems to decree that for many activities, people simply can't do two or more tasks at once. In addition, while the brain can switch rapidly from task to task, doing so takes more time to do the task. In addition, he says, you simply don't do as thorough a job, and some tasks simply aren't amenable to being done in a shallow way. The repeated switching of attention also adds to one's stress. The sleep disruptions that go along with social technology may help account for mental changes, says Kavari Subramaniam. Go with that. A professor of psychology at California State University in Los Angeles, the digital native generation, teens and young 20-somethings who have grown up with these technologies, sleep with a cell phone and get up in the middle of the night to respond to text. She says, while the long-term effects of such behavior are unknown, research has shown that frequent sleep interruptions make it harder for the brain to consolidate the day's learning and memories, she says. So again, cqpress.com article, Social Media Explosion, Marcia Clement, 2013. You got to make sure that you know the name, right? Because you're going to reference those as you're writing. So make sure you keep the two passages straight. Clement, right? Her argument is that while socializing online has created a nation of mobile devices, we may be changing how people think and learn. So that's her main argument. We are changing the way people think and learn. Texting can improve literacy. Okay, so our second passage, you call your son, daughter, or spouse to dinner. Just a minute, he or she yells. In the distance, you hear the clicking of fingers on a keypad. A familiar annoyance builds. You respond, stop texting, and get in here. The next time you find yourself in this situation, you may decide to hold your tongue. Some studies have shown that texting improves communication skills. Researchers at Coventry University have found that texting is about more than wasting precious time and annoying family members. In reality, texters may be improving their literacy skills, Dr. Beverly Plester says. The more exposure you have to the written word, the more literate you become, and we tend to get better at things we do for fun. Recent criticisms that text language, including abbreviations and contractions, for example, may begin to appear in formal writing have not proven true. Dr. Plester concludes that text language follows the general rules of language and that people have a sophisticated understanding of the appropriate use of words. Furthermore, texting is a fast and convenient way to communicate with others. The practice has even made its way into the traditional classroom. Miss Elsa Turner, a reading language arts teacher, regularly uses a free educational internet texting site to communicate with her students. She says, I send reminders about homework, assignments, and notifications when I've updated online grades. The students love it because the information is short and relevant, and the text helps relieve stress over forgotten deadlines. A study by the Pew Research Center found that on average, older teenagers send about 60 texts per day, and using texting as their dominant daily mode of communication. Their adult counterparts are not far behind in this rising trend. Perhaps the next time it's time to call the family to dinner, it might be more efficient to send a group text. From Texting Can Improve Literacy by Christine Leong, 2013. Okay, And so the extended response prompt, right? So while Clement's article outlines some drawbacks of social media, Leung's article identifies some benefits of social media. In your response, analyze both articles to determine which position is better supported. Use relevant specific evidence from both sources to support your response. It doesn't matter what the passages are. Your response, what they're prompting you to do is going to be the same thing here. It's going to be in your response, analyze both articles to determine which position is better supported. Use relevant and specific evidence from both sources to support your response. That's what you got to worry about, right? So that's exactly the question that's going to be asked to you, or the prompt that you're going to get on your writing response. Nothing fancy, nothing specific, just this. So it says here, for example, you may complete the thesis frame as follows. Leung better supports her claim because she does not qualify her evidence as Clement does. So remember, Clement is, has to qualify her statements because a lot of what she's offering, we don't actually know if there's going to be long-term effects, right? It may do this, having to qualify her statements. So that's something to consider too when we get into this. So now looking at the only multiple choice question, how about Grace? Would you like to read our question and answer it for us?
Okay. Which thesis statement is the best response to the prompts above? A, Clement and Leung present equally strong arguments. B, Clement fails to address the benefits of social media. C, Clement and Leung present equally weak arguments. And D, Leung supports her argument better than Clement does. D.
Exactly, right? Your thesis statement in your writing response should address both passages, right? And basically state, this one is better than this one. Everything else in there is not what you're looking for in your writing response. No, you're not going to say they're equally strong or equally weak arguments. You don't try to get fancy and try to make a case for both. I've dealt with so many college students that try this. They just won't be assertive and just say one is better than the other. They always kind of hem-haw and they get tentative. Make a case. And then that's the same thing. You have to address both. So like B, it says Clement fails to address the benefits of social media. Okay, that's not, that is important, but she's also making the case against social media, so she's not going to give you benefits. Leung's the one that's supporting her argument. So make sure that you're addressing both. Why one is stronger than the other one. Got to have that in your statement. Okay, so here's what we're talking about now. This is great. Exactly a visual to help us with each step, right? And that is what we're going to. I wish they had done this before. This would be so much better if we'd done this in the quiz rather than the workbook. But right, so we have a graphic here. So this graphic organizer about social media becoming a distraction, right? We're thinking about that first passage. And then we type our, we're going to go down here to type each response. It won't let us click in there. But that's the flow, right? We've got a little flow chart here. So what is the author's main claim? What is the thesis? What is the first and second reason that those claims are supporting claims? And then what's the evidence? I hope seeing that kind of helps you, understand the breakdown here. So all we're looking at right now, right? The only answer we need is for the first passage. What is Clement's claim?
The social media is already changing how people think and learn. Beautiful.
That's it, right? That addresses everything. It's a strong, opening statement. So some believe, I don't know why they capitalize social. Do you think social media? may already be changing the way people. That's the main claim. Everything else is under that umbrella, right? Everything else that she talks about falls in that one claim. So some people believe social media may be changing the way we think. Copy that, Roger, and paste. Okay. That's it. And then what we'll do next, we're going to the first reason, right? So still thinking about Clement, okay? What is the first reason she gives?
They cannot really multitask.
That's it. Perfect, right? Now we see, right? That's it. All we have to put in here then, for first reason the author gives to support her claim. People who grew up with electronic devices really can't task. Okay. And this is more about building our mental picture, right? Our mental outline of how we'll go about it. So, we don't have to be real careful as far as spelling. This is just for us. The rest will come into play when we actually do, some writing responses. But here, people who grew up with electronic devices really can't multitask. That's the first reason. All right. What is, I'm imagining, since we got the first reason here, I want to make sure. Evidence. Okay, so now, right, we're following the flow chart. We've got our main claim, our first reason, and now we're looking for evidence. So what is the evidence to support the claim that people cannot multitask?
Continuous partial attention.
What's that?
As a result, the typical technology obeys person now gives continuous partial attention to just about everything.
Yes. So that whole passage, right? What we have, right, is it's an appeal to ethics. She uses an expert, right? She has an expert testimony. So what we'll put in there is let me go back. This is going to get really annoying because you're scrolling and going back, scrolling. Okay, so first reason, the evidence for the first reason. So we'll put Professor Barry Rosen explains how multitasking prevents a person from giving full attention to the text. Okay. Just as long as it's falls in that realm of we're addressing that particular evidence and that particular expert. And you can, word it however you want, but basically that is the idea, right? So copy and paste here. Professor Larry Rosen explains how multitasking prevents a person from giving full attention to the task or full attention to anything, however you want to put it. And that's also a form of an appeal to ethics, expert testimony. rather than Miley Cyrus. Okay, picking on Miley today. So, number 5, second reason the author gives to support her claim. So, dealt with first reason and evidence for that. What's the second?
Sleeping, like this, sleep distraction, that goes along with.
Yep, that's it, right? Sleep disruption, screwing up our sleep patterns. All these kids and their cell phones today can't get a good night's sleep, right? So there's basically sleep disruption, right?
Yeah.
Copy that too. And paste here, right? That's it. Second reason, how to get your good 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. You need 2 full REM cycles of sleep. It is true nowadays, Nilda, and well, we'll get to this as we go along, as far as what we think might be the better claims made here. So that is, our evidence, our claims, our reasons, and our evidence. We filled out that text, that flow chart, right? Every piece of it. The main claim being, well, Clement. People, some believe social media may are changing the way we think. That's our first claim. Our first reason, people who grew up with electronic devices really can't multitask. The evidence provided by Professor Larry Rosen explains how multitasking prevents a person from giving full attention to any one task. And the second being sleep disruptions. And we also have, wait a minute, we should have another evidence here. So sleep disruptions. Yeah, okay. Well, getting ahead of myself, right? So what is the for sleep disruption? I almost gave the answer away too.
Digital native generation, teens and young 20-something who have grown up with sleep with a cell phone and get up in the middle of the night.
There you go.
To respond to tests.
All right, so we can just put, so for 6, here we go. So digital natives. I grew up playing Nintendo. I don't, so I'm a digital native. Sleep with, you could also mention, that we have a new expert, right? You could put that in there, but just for sake of speed, we'll skip the person's name. So sleep with phones on, causing frequent sleep interruptions. That's basically, you could go into more elaborate detail, but that's the gist of what's happening there. Okay, so paste that. Okay, now we've filled out our entire flow chart, right? So the second reason being, sleep disruptions, and the evidence presented by our expert shows that digital natives sleep with phones on, which causes frequent sleep interruptions as they answer the phones throughout the night. There we go. So our first passage is taken care of. We have a mental map now of every point from start to first and second reason to evidence. So now going to Leung, right? Our second passage. So what is Leung's primary claim? What is her thesis?
Testing improves communication skills.
Perfect, right? That is what we want. So, whoa, we're going way too far now. 7, So, yeah, that's the claim. Make sure I'm not going too far. 7. Some studies show texting improves communication skills. Okay, that's the claim, short and sweet. So copy that, paste. Some studies show texting improves communication skills. We got our first box in our flow chart filled out there. And then you know what's coming next, our first reason. So what is the first reason?
Improvement of literacy skills.
Beautiful, right? So may improve. Man, ooh. Literacy skills. Okay. At least I'm spelling everything right when they get there. But okay. And you'll notice, like when you probably notice, like all your tools, you'll have something similar when you know you do this for your test. You'll be able to highlight stuff, or I think you could even copy and paste. So if you wanted to use a quote, you could lift it up from the passage and copy and paste it into your answer. You know, do that sparingly as far as like quoting directly. Try to use your own words a lot. So may improve literacy skills, your first reason. Then we know it's coming now, evidence. So what is the evidence for that claim?
The more exposure you have to the written word, the more literate you become.
There you go. So I think it was Dr. Beverly Plester, something like that. So we'll just go ahead and include her name. Beverly Plester says, quote, and I want to see if I can copy and paste that, see what happens here. The more exposure, yeah, to have written word. All right, so we can put that in there, hopefully. Let me do this. Yeah, so copy. Shift. Yeah, looks like it's bold-faced or something too. That, not that it matters. Nope, nope. Okay, no, it's a different font size. Yeah, it'll work. Let's see if it works in the chat. Okay. And paste. Yeah, Dr. Beverly Plester says the more exposure you have to the written word, the more literate you become, and we tend to get better at things we do for fun. Okay, that is her evidence, right? So appeal to ethics again, using expert testimony, different than a testimony from, you know, a celebrity. Okay, so moving along, number 10, we know we're going to go to the second reason. So
Texting is a fast and convenient way to communicate with others.
that's it. Fast and convenient way to communicate. Yes. Okay. Copy. Paste. Okay. And so moving along here, so 10, our second reason. 11, we're going to look for evidence. What does she use for evidence?
Regular uses of free educational internet testing sites to communicate with her students.
There you go. Yeah, so we could put Miss Elsa Turner. I'll go ahead and copy and paste that again. Uses a free. Now, see, that's anecdotal again, right? That's only one experience. It's not, statistical evidence. It's just one person's experience with that. So, if you're going to make a case where that's the weaker argument, you may point that out, right? That, okay, well, she uses evidence, but it's only anecdotal. It's only one instance with no other supporting evidence as far as the benefit or how beneficial it is as a fast and convenient way to communicate. Okay, so copy that one. Paste that one. There we go. And so now we're looking at the strengths and weaknesses of each argument. So looking at Clement, going back to her, what are the strengths and weaknesses of Clement's argument? So thinking about that first one, right? What's the, I'll go back and take a look at it here too.
She presents her argument.
So she does use logical reasoning or logical evidence, right? She uses good evidence. She cites two different experts. So we can put in there, it's supported by evidence based on research. Both of these people are researching. They have results. They have some statistics. So based on research, but it is qualified. And this is what I was talking about, Nelda, as far as like, we know a lot more in 2022 about the effects of social media than they did in 2013, right? 9 years ago. I mean, we know a lot more, and we know that a lot of what, this is part of the problem with having an older passage. We know that what Clement is saying here did pan out, that it is true. But here, based on what we see, it's qualified. So she's saying quite a bit. It's like, well, it may do this. It, right there in the beginning, right? It may already be changing how people think and learn. Remember, we've talked about this as far as your statements and your tone, your style, all of that. When you qualify your statements with words like maybe or could or, stuff like that, you might run into an issue. So she's qualifying what she says. So if we're putting that together for 12, scroll back here to 12. Okay, here we go. So Clement's, and I don't need to italicize that. Okay, Clement argument is based on research, but some research is qualified and long-term effects are known. Okay. So pop that one in the chat there. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing for Leon. Okay, so what can we say about Leon's argument? But she also uses, you know, evidence-based research or research-based evidence. Sorry, you're right. She has evidence based on research, and that would be the strength. What might be a problem as far as a weakness here? Well, how does she kind of frame her overall idea? What does she kind of lead with and conclude with? That might make it problematic. So what kind of rhetorical element is in play here? Do you all see the bandwagon element here? So she says stuff, I mean, she's kind of inferring, you know, it's like, well, maybe you should, you know, start calling your family to dinner with text. And the study, the Pew Research study, you know, older teenagers are sending about 60 texts per day and using text as their dominant daily mode of communication. That's not, you know, necessarily a good reason, right? That's a little bit faulty. I mean, just because, like I said, if everyone else jumps off a bridge, are you going to also? It's not sound as far as evidence, right? As far as a claim being made, right? So she does use, in other cases, good research, but she also includes bandwagon rhetoric. So scroll back down here, get to, so Liang uses evidence based on research, but also includes bandwagon rhetoric. Okay. Copy and paste. Okay. And I mean, there's other things we can point out, but these are some of the more obvious ones. You know, so let's go to 14, see what we have. So we're going to mark up the text here. So identify a text from social media becoming a distraction. You would mark with marking graphics from the table. Okay. So what claims, okay, let me see here. 14. So this next part here, you know, it's more of showing you how you can find different elements, right? So using, you know, brackets to find the claim. So if you're going through and you wanted to mark the claim, so you could come back to it, right, and notate it, you can put brackets around it. Circle a number reasons, right? So you can put that and then a reason, like it shows here from Leung, is literacy, and then you could go through and circle each reason. Underlining evidence, so you could use that. Rhetorical techniques, so if they're using a rhetorical techniques like bandwagon, like they are showing here, you could put that in a box. Wavy line for opposing viewpoints. Are they addressing counterclaims? Wavy line. Triangle, so you can show relationships. So when you encounter that transitional language and things, you can use a triangle. This gets kind of technical. It's something that you may or may not want to use. But so we're only addressing social media becoming a distraction because they use Leung's in here. What is the claim? What would we put in brackets? We already talked about the claim too. So what's the thesis here that we would put in brackets?
For climate or Leung?
Clement. Yeah, we're only dealing with Clement. So we can go back and even look right at our previous questions, and we had claim, right? So basically some believe that
social media may already be changing how people think and learn.
Already be treating how people think, right? That's how it went. Okay. And copy that. So this is really just becoming more practice as far as identifying those different elements in an argument type of persuasive type of writing. So 15 then, right? We go to the next idea. So circle and number reasons. So what reasons would you circle and number? Right? So our two from before was
Really can't multitask.
okay. Multitasking. Okay, here we go. Multitasking. Okay, and sleep disruption, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going through and noting each annotating each text, right? So you could go back and kind of quickly find that information, right? This is the symbols that you might want to use, and this is the information that you. So multitasking, sleep disruption, right? Those are the reasons. Circle those. Underlining, so evidence, right? Now, what evidence would you underline?
Continuous partial attention.
Yes, so continuous partial attention, right? For one. What would be another?
Sleep with the cell phone and get up in the middle of the night.
Yes, sleeping
Respond.
with cell phones on that way, or smartphones at this point. Okay, so put that in there. And we also want to address, always keep in mind, what type of evidence that is, as far as other sort of techniques and things that they'll use. So 17, we're looking at what rhetorical techniques would you box and label? So we know with Clement, right? What did she use that kind of weakens her argument overall?
Social media discussion.
She has to qualify her statements, right? So when she says this may result in long-term effects. So
Mental health.
Yeah, we'll put qualifying can go either way. Qualifying can emphasize a point, right? Like we talked about, it's like, you know, many people were injured in the explosion, even more people were killed, or, you know, however you put it. But that's qualifying and adding emphasis. Qualifying can also be, you know, those statements that weaken an argument because it's using, you know, this could happen, or this should happen, this may happen. That weakens an argument, and something that you want to avoid when you're making your own. You know, that this may happen, that, you know, again, I used to deal with a lot of students that used to use that type of language, and I'm like, just be, you know, assertive when you write. So yeah, we'll put so what does she say? Yeah, like, so some believe that social media may already be changing how people think, right? That's an issue. Okay, so oh, let me find it here. Qualifying statement. Okay, and we'll paste that in there. And paste it here. All right. So there's a qualifying statement here. Pretty close to the end here. Only a handful more. So 18, we're looking at opposing viewpoint. So where does Clement use an opposing viewpoint?
Social technology may help account for mental change. Oh,
Well, she uses one right at the top, right? So, right, well, not the very top. So when electronic devices were first becoming popular, some hoped they would teach a new generation to multitask. So that there would be, you know, a counterclaim. So we'll drop that into 18. Okay. So electronic devices were first becoming popular. That's an opposing viewpoint. Okay. And let's paste that into the chat here as well. Okay. And then our last one. So, you know, relationships. Does the author use transitional language or signal words to show? Right? Where, let's go back and take a look again. Do you see any transitional language here?
Please, what's transitional language?
What's that?
Transitional language.
So making it's usually some type of introductory phrase that's showing that's alerting the reader to a, contrast, a conclusion, additional information, a sequence in time, right? So he's, furthermore, lastly, nevertheless, consequently, right? So it's alerting the reader. It's like, oh, we're having a little bit of a shift here and a new relationship. So I think, let's see, I know, obviously we have something in here. So here's one. In addition, right? So there's one. We can use that. Or just want to see, because a lot of times they'll have more than one.
As a result.
Okay, as a result, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Wait, where's as a result? I know I saw that.
Yeah, paragraph 3. After the university dominion hills. After university dominion hills, as a result, the typical technology obeys person now gives.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong paragraph. Yeah, so we could use any of those, right? She uses in addition multiple times and as a result. So we'll pick up as a result, right? And I'll go ahead and copy that. As a result, that's drawing you to a conclusion. That's drawing you to a consequence. That's detailing. It's signaling a change of some sort. Just like it says here, a relationship. So does the author use transitional language or signal words to show the relationships among ideas? When you say something like, I got stung by a bee, as a result, my arm swole up, something like that, right?
Okay.
So relationship between one and the other, cause and effect. It could be contrast. It could be additional information. There's a whole realm of things that could be a relationship. But in this case, we'll go with as a result, right? And I mentioned too, those are usually followed by some type of punctuation, like a comma. It's setting that off. So it's alerting the reader to look for some type of transition, some type of relationship. When we get to grammar, we're going to have a whole lesson on this to help you guys out. So more to work with there. So yeah, that is a relationship. Then get past these, because that was just kind of arduous. All right, so now writing a thesis statement, okay? This, I'm going to try to see if I can copy these images and put them in Google Classroom, so you can use these as templates, right, as practice. Every one of these will help you start your own thesis statement. This is all you have to do. You don't have to get fancy. Use these 3 or 4 templates, okay, to build your own thesis statement. So, like it says, decide which passage you think is better supported. Study the graphic organizer below. It provides 4 frameworks for a possible thesis statement. This is our last 4. We're going to use each one of these to build our own thesis statement. Complete the graphic organizer by typing your response in the space provided, which we're doing. So, what do you think we want to do for the first one? So we're going to use
Leon.
And it basically it restates it down here. So blank supports her argument better than blank because blank, right?
Okay.
Just same thing here. Blank supports her argument better than blank supports their argument because blank. Okay, so what do we want to say?
We will support her argument better than Clement.
And that's it. Well, then we'll put because. So you want to go with young for
Yeah.
this one? Okay. we'll go with a variety here. So we'll use Leung this time, and then maybe for the next one you'll use Clement. Just to show how they're different. So Leung supports her argument better than Clement. Okay. Because
He uses evidence based on research.
Okay. Leung uses evidence based on research.
Oh.
Based on research. Okay. And there you go. So
But I think they both use this evidence. They use the evidence based on
yeah,
research.
they do. Well, actually, we can make that stronger, right? So we could say, we can address the type of evidence or something that both use. Or you wouldn't have to do that either. You could also make a statement like, all right, where are we? Leung supports her argument better than Clement because Leung does not qualify her statements, right?
Yeah.
So we could say, let's go with that. We can put because Leung does not qualify her statements. Okay. Yeah. I think the templates are really a big help. It really gets you guys framing these. So, and of course, you just, if you wanted to just pick one or two to start sort of practicing with, don't worry about using them all. Any one of these are going to work for your writing response. Okay, so you could just pick one that you feel most comfortable with and work with that. Second here, okay, so blank makes a stronger argument than blank because blank. So these all kind of wind up being the same thing, right? They're just a different sort of verbiage, just a different sort of organization. So what do you think about 21?
Climate makes a argument based on research, but does not include bag one.
Yeah, there you go. So
is it rhetoric? Bag one rhetoric.
Bandwagon rhetoric. Yeah, perfect. So Clement makes a stronger argument than Leung because she does not use bandwagon rhetoric. Okay. And I'll copy paste that one. Okay. And moving on to the third option, right? And this one, really kind of is using that sort of counterclaim sort of idea, right? So while so-and-so argues this, so-and-so makes a better argument in favor of against blank because blank. So what do we want to put here?
Okay.
I'll go ahead. Let me try one here. So we'll use Clement again as the stronger argument. So we'll say while Liang argues that
Testing helps, like in communication. Climate says it disturbs, like it interrupts sleeps. Yeah.
You got it. So while Liang argues that texting helps strengthen communication, something like that.
Yeah.
Communication skills. We don't want to get too wordy. Clement makes a better argument against social media.
Yeah.
Right. Because what do we want to use? And she also cites good evidence and research, right? So, and again, we're not necessarily addressing the evidence here of, right? We're only asserting what their claim was. So while Liang, this one is really one of my favorite ones, right? Because you address both, but you only have to make the case for one. You don't have to necessarily show why the other one is weaker. So, while Liang argues that texting helps strengthen communication skills, Clement makes a better argument against social media because she cites credible research, right? Copy and paste. Okay. Now, our last one. So using this final one down here, best supports her claim because. So this one basically only addresses one, right? So the thing you would have to be cautious with is making sure that when you write out the rest of your response, you address the other passage. So I think the other options are a little bit better because it forces you to start thinking about the other passage. This one, you'd have to make sure that you don't forget to, that you're not just like, okay, this one has the best, claims and, outlining everything that's great about that passage, but forgetting to mention the other one. But even so, let's, for the exercise, for the sake of practice, what do we want to say here?
Okay.
So here's an example. We'll do two. Okay. So for Liang, better supports her claim because she does not qualify her evidence like Clement does. Okay, so there's one idea.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about it. I don't know if it were to be me, let's say in exams, can I write something like Leon better supports her claim because she gives a very or an accurate evidence that supports her claim. Like,
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay.
So we can put that in there too. So let's see here. So you said Leung best supports her claim
because she gives an accurate evidence to support her claim.
Okay. Let's see here.
Or best support her arguments.
Yeah, no, a claim's good. We'll put thesis or argument in there. Yeah, just to make sure. The other thing I would suggest, just the one word, instead of accurate, I would put relevant.
Okay, relevant. Okay.
A word that we use a lot, right? Relevant evidence to support her claim, her argument.
Okay.
Or no, I mean, that's good. That kind of says a lot of the, it's really addressing the same idea.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and I'll copy and paste that one too. And then I have one for Clement, okay, just because, just to balance things out here. We'll say this, right? So Clement best supports her claim because
does not bandwagon, does not use this bandwagon rhetoric.
Yeah, she does not use bandwagon rhetoric. Yeah, there you go. Right. So I think you're getting a handle on this. Right. I'll put that one in the chat too. So the best part here is that these things I will put the templates in into Google Classroom. So a little bit later down the road, when I actually have you guys do some, if on your own, this is optional, to do some writing responses to send to me, you'll have those templates you can look at to help form it. You'll have the flow chart to look at to help form it. Okay, so let me go ahead